we've been talking a ton, guys, on the YouTube channel about Gears of War 6, the Gears of War collection. We've been talking a lot about those things, but there's something that I really want to talk about in this first segment of the show that has to do with Gear 6, but it has to do with the title. So here's what I'm getting at. Gears of War, when it first started as a franchise, the title was Gears of War, and then we got Gears of War 2, and then we got Gears of War 3, and then, of course, Gears of War Judgment, to the Gears of War Ultimate Edition, to Gears of War 4, and now we have Gears 5, and now, obviously, the speculation is that the next title in the franchise is going to be Gears 6, not Gears of War 6. I want to talk about this because, it's really interesting to me that how we got to this point, that being the transition from Gears of War to Gears. It's really interesting. So I definitely want to talk about that in this first segment of the show. So let's get into it. How did we get to where we are right here, right now? And I'm not talking, guys, about the necessarily the history of Gears of War, but I'm talking more the history of the title, that being the actual name itself, and how did this transition happen, and what can we kind of expect moving forward, now moving into Gear 6 or Gears of War 6, the Gears of War collection, or the Gears collection, right? Or, of course, what some people think it to be the Marcus Phoenix collection. So let's talk about that. This next upcoming title in the Gears of War franchise, I've said it many times, that obviously I would love to see a Gears of War collection, but I think what's the most important thing is none other than Gear 6 or Gears of War 6. And I've said that a number of times, guys, for a number of reasons, because number one being that Gear 6 is the future of the franchise, whereas the Gears of War collection is going to be more so kind of reminiscing in the past. It's going to be us kind of, obviously going back into the past, these great titles that we all fell in love with, right? That being Gears 1, 2, 3. But it's not so much moving the franchise forward. And so I always thought that the Gears of War collection would be a great bridge title between Gears 5 to Gears 6. It would kind of help bridge that gap. That being said, though, in terms of, Gears 6, I always felt that was the most important thing for the franchise moving forward, because that's going to obviously give us that, it's going to kind of give us that timeline forward, or not even so much the timeline, it's going to more so give us the future of the franchise, right? I would love to have both. There's no doubt about it. I'd love to have a Gears of War collection as well as Gears 6, but I think that Gears 6 is definitely more important at this point in time. So with that, how did we get to, Gears 5 being the title? Why wasn't it called Gears of War 5? And, it's interesting because Rod Ferguson, who was the studio head at the Coalition at the time, was responsible for, of course, Gears of War 4, Gears 5, being the studio head. I thought that overall he did a really good job, but there were some things that were a little bit questionable without question. And I feel like one of them was changing the name of Gears of War altogether to, Gears instead of Gears of War. It started as Gears of War. So why did they change it? And, Rod Ferguson had some interesting interviews talking about this, his reasoning for changing it from Gears of War to Gears. One of the things I remember him speaking on was that the community calls it Gears. The community doesn't call it Gears of War as much. And this reasoning, I didn't really agree with it, and I still don't to this day. Here's why. Gears of War was the name from the very beginning. I think of another franchise that I absolutely love, that being Call of Duty, right? A lot of people in the Call of Duty universe and ecosystem call Call of Duty COD. We don't necessarily, we'll call it Call of Duty every once in a while, but a lot of people call it COD, right? But that doesn't mean that you're going to call the actual official title for the next Call of Duty COD Modern Warfare 2. No, it's going to be Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, right? So why did we change the title from Gears of War to Gears when it comes to the official title? We can still call it Gears, right? But why did they change that? And so I think that where was a mistake. And I'm not saying, guys, that the failure of Gears 5, even though when we look at it in terms of Gears of War as a whole, we're like, yeah, it was a failure, like just from a multitude of perspectives. Even though I loved Gears 5, I thought it was great. I still think it's great, even though it's not going to be supported anymore. Gears Esports has shut down at this point in time. I still love Gears 5. I think it's great, but I do believe that it should have been called Gears of War 5. It should not have been called Gears 5. And, that's just my opinion. I just think that there's so much history with the Gears of War universe that to change the game, the title from Gears of War to Gears was a massive disservice. And I don't really understand the full reasoning. And I would love to hear more from the Coalition about this, or as to what they're planning on doing in the future. Because we're all assuming that Gears 6 is going to be, the official title is going to be called Gear 6. It's not going to be called Gears of War 6. But I'm going to, just say this right here, right now on the Gears cast, that Gears 6 should be called Gears of War 6. It should not be called Gear 6. Now, Rod Ferguson, the studio head at the Coalition, had also mentioned that he confirmed Gear 6, Gear 7, as well as a Gears of War movie. And that was before he, of course, left the Coalition to move over to Diablo, as their, which, was one of those ordeals, right? We lost Cliffy B, we lost Rod Ferguson, and now we're kind of in this limbo state, right? Now, does them saying, or them calling it Gear 6 make the game already, kind of put it into a bad position? No, because the game is going to speak for itself. If the game is really good, it doesn't matter what the title is. It doesn't. I just think that, to me at least, it's kind of taking an identity away from the title. Right? It's almost like, another comparison, we brought up Call of Duty and COD and such, but let's talk about it from let's talk about from a professional sport. Let's say the NBA, okay? The National Basketball Association. Let's just say they decided, we're going to change the name from the National Basketball Association to the Basketball Association, just to make it short, make it easier. It's not going to be national anymore. It's just going to be the Basketball Association. I feel like it's taking an identity away from what it is, right? It's taking away, we all know that it's basketball, right? But the NBA is what we all call it, but the National Basketball Association, you're taking away an identity completely, in my personal opinion, if you were just to call it the Basketball Association, right? So, and a lot of people do call it the association and such, and there's nothing wrong with that, but if they change the name to just the association, not to the NBA or the National Basketball Association, it's such a disservice to the history of what was built there. And that's why I feel that Gears 6 should not be called Gear 6. It should be called Gears of War 6, because of the history that was built in Gears of War all these years. So my call to the Coalition is to truly think about calling the next Gears of War iteration Gears of War, not Gears. We'll call it Gears for short, because that's what it is. We're all Gears, right? We're all a part of this thing. Gears fam, we're a part of this thing. But don't call the title Gears. Call it Gears of War. That's my opinion, and that's one man's thoughts, guys. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts about it in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys think. I think it's something that we should definitely have that as a conversation, especially when we haven't gotten the official announcement of Gear 6 at this current juncture in time. We haven't got an announcement of it. We haven't got an announcement of the Gears of War collection either. And matter of fact, going to Gears, the Gears of War collection, it should be called the Gears of War collection, not the Gears collection. I just think for the sake of, and I think that, some of this has to maybe do with other titles out there like God of War. So GOW, similar to Gears of War, God of War has their thing. And so maybe they were thinking, well, we're just going to try to make this, instead of it being Gears of War, and then there's like God of War, maybe we're just going to call it Gears. There was probably some of that, maybe that was, behind the scenes, they decided to call it Gears for that as well. But like, let God of War do that. Like, don't be the ones that kind of change that whole narrative and such. I just think that Gears of War is Gears of War, okay? It's been around for a long time, and it should not be something that is just changed from a title perspective. That being said, when we talk about, like, from a gameplay perspective, from campaign, all of that, the game is going to speak for itself. The title doesn't have anything to do with it. But I just think that I wanted to bring that up in this segment of the show because I think it's important that we have that discussion while we're waiting for the announcement for the next Gears of War title. But once again, guys, let me know in the comment section down below what you guys all think about that. I would love to hear your thoughts about it in the comment section down below. And for more Gears 6 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV.